I really have to say, Season of Opulence has been the best Destiny expansion ever, in my opinion. The main reason that I think so highly of Season of Opulence is the centerpiece, the menagerie activity. For once in Destiny's life cycle, I have an activity that hits almost all the check marks of things that I like seeing in Destiny. I'll go through each of these check marks so you better understand where I'm coming from and why I value this expansion so much. For starters, let it be known that I heavily preference the player versus player offerings in Destiny 2 because I feel that's where the real replayability lies. For example, if there's a player versus environment activity like a raid, I could do it once and feel that as long as I can do it once, then I can pretty much do it every single time. The challenge isn't as much of a question. However, if I play PvP, player versus player, and I play the same opponent 100 times in a row, you can bet for most of those matches my opponents will adapt and throw something out of left field I never even considered. To put it simply, player versus player activities just keep me engaged. And every expansion, brings new weapons, new armor, new exotics, and these interact in PvP to give you even more replayability. They compound on top of each other, offering many more avenues to enjoy PvP. With this idea in mind, you can maybe understand why I'm so behind the idea of the menagerie activity. I have a deterministic path to obtain loot. Contrast this with previous Destiny expansions dating all the way back to Destiny 1. Maybe in some certain expansion, there was a loot piece of gear that I was really excited about using in PvP, but because of random chance, I never actually got to use it. Well, I'm happy to report that the menagerie activity has actually changed all that. I get to choose what weapon or armor I want. Although I don't get to choose the specific role on it, I can at least get the weapon in the first place. And for somebody who isn't the biggest fan of random roles, I feel that this is an excellent compromise, a worthy middle ground. Really, the whole concept of how you get loot in the menagerie is just really clever and well done. Kudos to Bungie. The way it works is that you have a chalice that you can upgrade through just playing the game. You earn runes to slot in the chalice, which determine your reward. And you can earn these runes from just playing what you like playing, whether it be strikes or PvP. I'll add that if you frequently do Black Armory Forges or the Reckoning, you cannot receive runes as a reward there, but it would be nice to see that in the future. But regardless, the core concept remains the same. I play the activity I like, PvP, I get rewarded with runes, I take those runes, slot them in my chalice, do the menagerie, get the weapon I want, maybe not the exact role I want, but that's okay, because I can keep doing it. This is where the menagerie hits another crucial checkmark for me, which is the fact that if you have a very skilled, efficient team, you can finish the menagerie that much faster. And because of rotating encounters and random modifiers each day, your most efficient strategy changes, and that at least keeps you engaged in PvE. Let's contrast this idea with last expansion's Reckoning activity. So if I had a very skilled team, we could finish the activity in about 7.5 minutes, whereas a not so skilled team is probably going to finish it in around 8 minutes. We're saving 30 seconds a run. But in the menagerie, we could realistically save 10 plus minutes. This heavily incentivizes keeping your attention up and putting in some effort, which leads to a more engaging PvE experience. I'll give some more details here just for clarity. The Reckoning activity, even if you run it with the best team in the world, it's going to look strangely similar to just an LFG team. The bridge section can only go so fast, so the optimal strategy for the bridge is pretty much the same no matter what the modifiers or random encounter are. You pretty much just throw a Will of Radiance down at each flag, use the pulse rifle and the snipers if you even want to do that, and use your power weapon on the elites and majors. As long as you can follow those basic directions, you can pretty much play on autopilot, which is why no matter what day it is, what modifier, what team I'm running with, the Reckoning sort of puts me to sleep by comparison to the menagerie. Now, day to day in the menagerie, I need to be very attent, I need to have good communication with my team, I need to get the best teammates I can, because as long as we're communicating, putting effort in, hitting shots, we can end that activity and get to the reward section that much faster. It's really difficult to be bored with the menagerie / fall into autopilot mode because you know that putting effort in saves minutes of everybody's time. Combo the fact that effort equals efficiency and that you can deterministically choose your loot, and getting your god roll on a weapon isn't a matter of if anymore, it's a matter of when. And I can't think of a Destiny DLC expansion, whatever you want to call it, where that was the case. I'll give you a good example of this. So, way back when in the Forsaken expansion, they released a game mode called Gambit, where there was a possible reward of a shotgun called Parcel of Stardust in the kinetic slot that had a particular role that was very good in PvP. It complemented one of my favorite weapons, the Polaris Lance, so that I had a more well-rounded loadout. I have probably played 1,000 Gambit games since that expansion, and I have not got a natural Parcel of Stardust to drop with those perks. Lo and behold, that 3 seasons later in the Menagerie activity, I can just grind for the Parcel of Stardust, and getting it has made this expansion infinitely better. Because to me, theory crafting a loadout, getting the weapon, mastering the loadout is such a better feeling to me than beating the raid for the first time. And the best part about that is I can now take that Parcel and Polaris Lance loadout and make different loadouts with the same components. For example, maybe I first built that loadout for a Titan, then I later tried it out on a Warlock and found out that it actually synergized very well with Blink because of the lightweight bonuses of the shotgun, and then I comboed that with Astrocyte Burst and got an entirely new play experience. Simply put, just getting loot that I'm excited about using can lead to potentially hundreds of hours of entertaining playtime. Take for instance the Menagerie's reintroduction of the double primary pairings, aka the Drang and the Mida Mini Tool. Simply having these in the loot pool is already pretty cool, but the fact that I can deterministically grind for a role that suits my needs makes it even better for replayability. Imagine for a second that this was any other Destiny expansion, and you could see yourself grinding the Menagerie for like 1,000 runs and maybe never even seeing a Drang Year 2 or a Mini Tool Year 2, which really sucks for somebody who enjoys playing PvP with varied loadouts. With all this mentioned, the big picture becomes more clear. The Menagerie is pretty sick. For a recap, here's the checkmarks that it hits for me. A. I can deterministically grind for loot, so if I really want to use the Drang, I can use the Drang. B. The activity rewards effort with efficiency. C. The activity itself actually has enough randomness to keep it interesting. D. The loot from the Menagerie was cool enough to be sought after, but not powerful enough to introduce power creep. I feel that they took some archetypes that maybe weren't as loved by the community and gave the community a new reason to try them out. Take the beloved sniper for example. And that pretty much summarizes my thoughts on the Menagerie and Season of Opulence so far. If you're a Bungie employee watching this video, pat yourself on the back because I thought this activity, this expansion, was fantastic. Seriously, if I was to figuratively put any Destiny expansion on the fridge to show off, this would be the one. This would be the gold star, the A+. And the crazy thing is, I didn't even mention the raid in this video, which I also thought was good, but it was completely overshadowed because the day-to-day ritual of playing Destiny, aka the Menagerie now, impacted my play experience that much more. Before somebody in the comment section calls me a Bungie shill or makes fun of me for the miss grenade in the background gameplay, you haven't seen nothing yet. I'm about to go in. You ready? I'm gonna say it. I don't care that you broke your elbow. But no, seriously, PvP is in a terrible state. I do not look forward to playing it whatsoever. And if you recall back to the earlier section of this video, you might remember that PvP is kind of a big reason that I even participate in the PvE gameplay loop to begin with. In other words, I think Bungie nailed the PvE aspects of this expansion, but severely neglected the PvP. Like, so much so, oh my god, that's funny. They threw PvP to the wolves. Really. Yes, I did just make a joke about Lord of Wolves and the state of PvP simultaneously. Do what you want, but my pulse rifle skill goes up with every dad joke made. Back on topic, however, I think Destiny thrives when both PvE and PvP are in good states. Even if they're just both adequate, it's still better than having one fantastic and the other left in the dust. Because I tell you what, if PvE is fantastic but PvP is terrible, I'm just gonna go play Halo. But if PvP is great and PvE is garbage, well, I'm just gonna go play Borderlands. Destiny, in my opinion, is about mixing those two worlds together, and no other game can do it as good, even if right now you would agree that overall, the game isn't in the best of states. Seeing as Destiny 2 will soon have a free-to-play overhaul along with new content and maybe new mechanics altogether, I think it's that much more important to nail that harmony between good PvE and good PvP. I feel that a fitting end to this video would be me talking about some grievances I have with the current state of PvP, maybe what I want to see changed moving forward, but before I do that, I want to mention one time that I was really wrong when it comes to giving maybe game advice on PvP, and one time that I was really right, and then for the remainder of the video, I'll let you decide for yourself what the takeaway is for you. The biggest mistake I've ever made when it comes to advising on PvP matters is overestimating how much the community would like a competitive playlist. I myself am really quite fond of it. I like the fact that I can grab my best team, I can try my absolute ass off against other people doing the exact same, win or lose. In my opinion, it was such a streamlined way to get that competitive experience that I thought it would actually change the state of quick play. The way the cookie actually crumbled was that people saw the competitive playlist as a means to an end and not an alternative endgame experience. Rather than looking at that playlist as an opportunity to improve, build a team, and learn to like playing against stronger teams, nope. Just complain until the playlist is easier so you can get the rewards and never play it again. Then take that same effort that you should have been having in competitive and put forth that effort in quick play? Call me crazy, but I always thought of the comp playlist as the PvP's raid equivalent, because I mean, look at them side by side. In PvE, the raid, you need to build a character with the light level capable of tackling it, the gear capable of tackling it, with a team who knows the mechanics or at least is willing to learn them. The difference is that PvP, your enemy will always adapt, whereas your typical PvE raid, once you learn the boss mechanics, you learned them. It just blows my mind that within inches of each other on a forum are two different threads, one that says, Bungie, I need more content, make more content, and then another one that says, comp is too hard. Blows my mind. So yeah, I severely overestimated the community's reception to the comp playlist, but maybe that's because it's more specifically tied to a reward being in the comp playlist rather than the comp playlist itself. I have to ask though, if there was a PvE equivalent of such a pinnacle reward, right? Imagine if the Not Forgotten had an equivalent in PvE and you could get it from doing a raid, a flawless raid, in under 30 minutes. I'm genuinely curious what the community would think of that sort of scenario. I'll add that when it comes to other video games, if there is some sort of reward that I cannot obtain yet, I don't look at that as a problem. I look at that as extended endgame. More things for me to do. More challenges for me to overcome. It's more of a personal outlook. I don't know how many gamers out there share that, but to me, that's what keeps me playing. As far as the term power fantasy goes, I consider that to be relevant in single-player games. If it's a multiplayer game, being powerful all the time when everybody else is powerful all the time just seems a little redundant and takes away from the overall feel. It makes everything feel trivial and mundane with very little effort put in. That's just my 2 cents on the matter. Feel free to disagree. I mean, at the end of the day, we all have different preferences and opinions on the games that we enjoy. So with that sort of logic in mind, that maybe paints the picture as to why I criminally overrated the reception of the comp playlist. So there we go. That's on the record. I was really wrong, and that wasn't the only time. That's just one of the best examples I can think of. Now, on the other hand, there was a recent time where I was really right. Sorry if you can hear like crickets chirping. I think they're called cicadas in Florida. I'm not 100% sure, but they kind of sound like a rattlesnake, like very faintly, but if there's enough of them, it's really loud. Anyway, back to that time I was right. I'm talking about the Not Forgotten hand cannon nerf. The community was very quick to sing songs of praise and joy, but I could see from 100 miles away that the Not Forgotten nerf wasn't going to turn out the way you thought.
If you decide to go this route and just keep nerfing outliers, this doesn't solve the feeling of inconsistent hand cannons on a controller. It just rebalances the game around the nerfed Not Forgotten again.
Basically, what I predicted in that video is that because Not Forgotten is used because it's a consistent hand cannon, nerfing it won't necessarily stop people from using it because there are no other alternatives on controller. Consequently, the nerf changed it into a more favorable archetype for controller while simultaneously ruining the reason to pace and precisely aim your shots. So on mouse and keyboard, where precision is the name of the game, I see almost no point whatsoever in using a Not Forgotten unless you just don't have a better hand cannon. I predicted in my video that on console, the Not Forgotten is going to be used just as much as it previously was, if not more, and that on PC, it would be used almost never. And that's what happened. I hate the report, but I was also a proponent of Magnificent How only working on precision hits and the rate of fire change, but leaving Magnificent How to function as it did before. Looking back on it, I even mentioned it in the video, I really like how the Not Forgotten fit into the PvP ecosystem at the time, the lethal version. I thought of it as the Halo Magnum. Unlike other guns that existed in the game, if I was losing a Not Forgotten duel, it's because I was a worse player, not I came to the fight with worse equipment. Or Flinch is a thing, they have high cals, I don't. I'm not going to continue to elaborate on this any further, but I hope this paints both sides. I can be both extremely wrong and extremely right. I'm a human. I fuck up. But sometimes I do something cool. So I'm hoping that this brief conversation maybe sets the stage for me to talk about PvP as a whole and what I would like to see change for it to give a better day-to-day experience. Starting at the top, let's talk about supers. They are too frequent, they last too long, and they have too much damage resistance because I can barely counter them with normal means. Sure, I could throw on an Izanagi, suppressor nades, a tractor cannon, but that requires me to play one very dull playstyle. And I hate to say that in the higher levels of the competitive playlist, it's almost better to just use a roaming super better than the opponent than to focus on shutting out supers whatsoever. So here's how I'd like the relationship with supers in PvP to go from here out to the future. I would say super mods, straight get rid of them. Refund you 10 mod components for every super mod on, just get rid of them. They are almost a non-decision at higher end PvP, and they don't really change the PvE experience that much. Next thing, damage resistance. I would like to see it so that high impact snipers pretty confidently take out every super in the game, whereas adaptive snipers with box breathing take out every super in the game, but without box breathing can take out some of the lower damage resistance ones. I'll also add that I think the combination of a shotgun plus a melee should also kill most supers, and that the precision damage from a weapon should factor in more to killing a super than they already do. I'd also like to see the economy for generating orbs of light maybe be taken a second look at, assuming some of the proposed changes I mentioned might be completed. So that covers my take on supers, and now I want to talk about wall hacks, or abilities that allow a player to see another player through the wall. If you combine wall hacks with the lethality of an instant kill weapon, it becomes very unfun very fast. In higher level comp, the simple act of just calling out where somebody is because you can see them through the wall, relaying that information to your team, that already on its own is worth its weight in gold, but the fact that you can just aim a snipe and end their career, it gets excessive. All for the low cost of getting shot at or just crouching and securing the kill. While I would personally like to see all forms of wall hacks burned with fire, maybe there could be some clever way to skillfully implement them into the game. I don't think I'm the person to give you that answer. Moving on to other issues, high caliber rounds and primary flinch. I don't like getting in a gunfight with a random element kicking my gun, causing me to miss. And in the same light, I don't necessarily like doing that to my opponent, unless of course they have a sniper rifle on. To make this abundantly clear, I heavily dislike primary flinch, and I really love the fact that sniper rifles are flinched, because if you are a semi-decent sniper, you can dictate the pace of the entire game because your gun can kill instantly any distance. To accomplish securing the kill with the snipe, all you have to do is aim down sights and shoot them before they shoot you. If you can do this, you get to succeed with the snipe. If you don't, I'm sorry. Because if they make sniping any easier, that's all you're gonna see. But frankly, in my neck of the woods in PvP, that's all I see. I see the entire team hardscoping in the back of the spawn with rapid fire frames, and if I show an elbow, I see like 8 trails of sniper going down the lane. It's not fun. It's not fun. The worst part is that over time with sniper buffs and power creep of snipers, that the saving grace of flinching a sniper to live just doesn't cut it anymore. Sometimes I put an entire burst of blast furnace into somebody and they kill me on like the 3rd bullet of my burst with a headshot, no problem. It's really frustrating. And before anybody types it up in the comments, I am talking from both a console and a PC perspective. If I climb the competitive ranks, this is not because of the Revoker quest, this is because this is the most effective means to win. I always run into snipers. And unfortunately, I can't flinch them enough. It borderline turns into me and my team just abandoning the idea of a primary altogether because just everybody sniping is more effective. Moving on, of course, I've seen that Bungie is already dealing with Lord of Wolves, otherwise I would have mentioned it here. For now, I feel that the grievances I listed for PvP cover at least the big glaring issues that make me not look forward to playing PvP, but if I had to elaborate, I would say that Last Word hitting 50 to the body is kind of annoying because there's no resilience in the world that can stop that. I would rather the gun having a lightning quick TTK would require headshots for that combination. Also, on the subject of body shots, rapid fire frame snipers, there needs to be a resilience so that you can survive both a last word forward tap to the body and a rapid fire double tap. Before anybody types in the comments that I'm only asking for nerfs, let it go on the record that I would like to see maybe the way that hand cannon recoil works on controller be adjusted so it more or less mirrors how it feels on mouse and keyboard. Simultaneously, I'd like to see there be a precision purpose to use Not Forgotten again, while also taming the Recluse, maybe changing the function so it's not a free kill clip to the body from any weapon kill, maybe stacks, maybe it works precision more than body, I don't know. There's a lot of room to work with to keep it powerful, but also tone it back. In the same light, Mountaintop Velocity Cut would benefit PvP just a little bit because it feels like it's hard to counter on some maps. Now, to contrast the nerfs I just asked for, maybe show some love to Crimson Exotic Hand Cannon and the lasers, Cold Heart and Prometheus Lens. And that's about where I'm going to stop before this video becomes severe overkill on the talk of balancing. I just want to make sure that the issues are on record. If you decided to skip ahead to this portion of the video, this is where I recap everything I talked about. To put it simply, this is the TLDR, the recap. Here we go. The Menagerie, Bungie knocked that activity out of the park. The PvE aspects of Destiny are some of the best it's ever been. So I have to ask, if PvE is good and PvP is forgotten about, why would I play Destiny? Destiny is supposed to mix both of those two together. And if one aspect is lacking, I would rather just play a different game where it does that singular aspect that much better. So for me to really be excited about playing Destiny holistically again, some things in PvP need to change.